Hello there. Today's keynote is a little bit different than what I normally do. Normally, I have a green screen set up, I walk around, I try to make it look as much as a stage as I can because I want to recreate the feeling of sitting in an audience and somebody's telling something, we used to do before Corona times. Now, of course, I have a home studio, so it's not that impressive, but still, it feels somewhat close to a presentation that I might give on a stage somewhere. Today's a bit different. Today, my keynote is not about something that I want to teach. It's about something that I just learned. And I found that pretty interesting. And that's why I also changed the setup here, because this does not feel like me being on a stage sharing some wisdom or some sort of knowledge. This is me sitting at my desk, at my computer, sharing an aha moment from my life. Now, with that said, I want to introduce you to somebody. Some of you may know him. Probably most of you don't. His name is Henrik, and Henrik and I went to high school together a little bit over 20 years ago, and we haven't spoken in about a decade. But today we had a catch-up call on Zoom, and our lives have taken very, very different paths. I went the crazy entrepreneurial route and went out and had wild and bizarre adventures, both good and bad, and have settled on the island of Bornholm in the Baltic Sea right now, where Henrik took a little bit of a more stable, smarter path, very much smarter path, moved to a different part in Denmark, and now a couple of years ago moved with his wife and their twins to Spain. Henrik teaches sales coaching. He's a sales coach, and it seems that he's a pretty good one from what I can follow on his LinkedIn, where I have been following him for some time. And we finally had a chance to catch up, and we talked a little bit about old times, but that was tiny. What we mostly talked about was work, because that's something that interests both of us. And Henrik had an observation that I wanted to share, and that's why this keynote. He said that it's funny, Claus, because you work with innovation, and I coach people, but it's funny that at the end of the day, we do basically the same. We ask people, what's holding you back from trying things in a different way? And he was completely right. Though we, of course, approach it differently, though we have both have different methods and different backgrounds and different kind of personalities and styles, at the end of the day, we kind of do the same thing. We get people to look into that possibility space of, what if you tried? What if you didn't just think about things being different, but what if you actually did it? What would that look like? And he also said something pretty profound. He said that what holds most people back, he finds, is that they have all these expectations for themselves, expectations from other people, expectations from the world. And a lot of the expectations, they're not real. The ones from themselves are real, yes, but the ones from the other people, they're not real. They only exist inside their own heads, but they're still things that hold them back. And of course, he's worked a lot with sales, a lot with training personnel in organizations, especially in the finance world, but also is doing like personal coaching for people who kind of feel stuck somehow in not just career, but probably also a little bit in life. And I do some of the same stuff, but from a different standpoint, because when I talk about innovation, one of the questions I ask people is, what if you try it? What could go wrong? Who's going to get hurt? What is it going to cost? What is the price of failure? And usually when they look at it, the price of failure is not that big. Usually it's, okay, well, I guess I'll miss that meeting, or I guess I'll do this differently. Yeah, I guess I could do that. And then they have that moment, and it's lovely to see. It's one of the best moments you can have as a coach, I feel, is when they say, yeah, I guess I'm going to do that now. Because they've realized that the only things holding them back were mental walls. Now, this is not everything. I'm not peddling some sort of miracle solution here. I'm not saying that either Henrik or I have kind of found the golden secrets of the world and anything can be done. No, far from it. There's so many things where it can't be done because of time or money or skill or energy or whatever. But there's so many things that can. There's so many things where we are the ones holding us back. And this keynote journey that I'm on, this is my keynote number 23. And for those of you who are just watching this, that'll be meaningless to you. But for those of you who've kind of followed that, you'll know this is my 23rd video. And why is that interesting? Well, it is because this started because another friend, Chris Mix, an American former creative producer at CBS News, said, Klaus, what's holding you back? Why aren't you doing more keynotes? And I said, I'm doing all the keynotes I can. And he said, no, why aren't you just setting up your studio, looking at the camera, putting up a slide deck if you want one, and filming a keynote? I said, huh? But then there'll be no audience. He said, well, you have an audience. You have people who follow you. You have people who are interested in what you say. And even if there wasn't, you're still doing it. And you're still showing off what you think. And maybe it can be useful sometime. I said, yeah, you're right. What's holding me back? And I realized in that conversation with Chris, there was nothing holding me back from doing those keynotes except myself, my own ideas, my own expectations, my own limitations. And then I started doing them. I might have set the pace a little bit high at one per day because I'm an idiot, but there was nothing that stood in my way of taking that chance of experimenting, of doing that. And what Chris said, what Henrik says, and what I also tell my clients is, what would it cost you to try? What's holding you back? Is it something outside you that you don't control? Because there are plenty of factors we don't control. Or is it something inside you that you do control? And a lot of the time, not all, but a lot of the time, the small things, the small experiments are things we control. The big ones, that's more tricky. But the small ones, we have so much control over small things. And the small things can actually have huge impact. And of course I know this, and I preach this, and I teach people this, and I coach this, and I talk about it all the bloody time. Yes, that's not new. That's, to me, kind of the basis of innovation, is experimenting, is trying, is saying, okay, what's holding me back? It's me. Okay, let's remove that. Let's just do it. What was fascinating to me was that a large part of life coaching, a large part of sales coaching, and a large part of innovation and of innovation coaching were essentially the same. And I think that if Henrik and I swapped jobs for a day, took each other's clients, yes, they would get something different than what they asked for, but a lot of what they would get would still be useful to them, even though Henrik is not an innovation specialist. He doesn't claim to be. I'm definitely not a sales specialist. I don't claim to be. But still, because of our way of thinking, we would still be able to add value to the other person's clients. I firmly believe that. I don't know if we'll ever make that test. I'm not going to suggest it because it's a little bit mad, but I think we could. Now, of course, I'm left with what's keeping me back from trying it. Well, in this case, I need not just me, but also Henrik willing to do that, or somebody else. But leave that for the moment. What I want to ask you in this conversational fireside chat, not me talking from a stage, but me kind of talking with you, even though it's a one-way thing. I get that. What are places in your life where you have people who do something different, but the mindset is the same? Where that because the mindset is the same, you might be able to exchange places. Maybe not with a client, but maybe with a team. Maybe bring in somebody who thinks the same way, but has a completely different background, completely different way of expressing themselves, completely different library of concepts and skills, etc. And what would it cost for you to bring in that person? Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a colleague, maybe it's a stranger, to get that spark of inspiration that is basically you, but from a different angle. Where can you do it? What would it cost you? What's keeping you from trying? I know that I hadn't thought of that before, not in the same way, not in as kind of a visceral sense as I just had after that catch-up talk with a high school friend that I hadn't talked with for many years. And I'm going to find out who can I do that with, who can I kind of swap in for an organizational thing, or for a client meeting, or for kind of my own personal development. Maybe it's Henrik. Maybe it's Chris. Maybe it's somebody else. Who do you have? I'm not expecting an answer, especially because this is, after all, a one-way video. So even if you're sitting there saying, yes, Klaus, I have an answer, but you idiot, you're talking to me via YouTube, I can't answer you. Well, then at least consider it yourself. And if you think, oh yeah, but what's new about this? Well, then I can say it was new to me. And whether it's new to you or not, I just want to say thank you for listening.